Every single day, millions of people wake up, take their blood pressure medication exactly as prescribed, and assume they are protected. But here is what most of them do not realize. Research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that even among people taking medication consistently, nearly half still do not have their blood pressure adequately controlled. And among those who do achieve lower numbers on their monitor, cardiovascular events still occur at alarming rates. Strokes still happen. Heart attacks still happen. Kidney damage still progresses. The medication brought the number down. So why did the damage continue? Because blood pressure is not the disease. Blood pressure is a signal. And when you silence a signal, without understanding why it was raised in the first place, you leave the actual problem completely untreated. This is what conventional medicine gets fundamentally wrong about hypertension. The entire approach focuses on forcing the number lower through chemical intervention. But your body did not raise that pressure randomly. Your body raised it deliberately, in response to something happening inside you that required more force to push blood through your system. When you understand what that something is, you can fix it. And when you fix it, blood pressure normalizes on its own because the body no longer needs to compensate. That is the difference between suppressing a symptom and resolving a cause. By the end of this video, you will understand the 3 hidden forces that drive blood pressure upward in most people. These are not the causes you hear about from standard medical advice. These are deeper dysfunctions that medications do not address, and most doctors never test for. More importantly, you will learn exactly how to correct each one naturally, using methods supported by clinical research. If you have been struggling with blood pressure despite doing everything you were told, or if you want to understand how to protect yourself before problems start, this video will change how you think about cardiovascular health. Subscribe to Wellness Secrets now, so you do not miss any of the information coming. Let us start with the fundamental misunderstanding that keeps millions of people trapped on medications that never actually heal them. Your blood pressure reading represents the force your blood exerts against your artery walls as your heart pumps. The top number, systolic, measures pressure when your heart contracts. The bottom number, diastolic, measures pressure when your heart relaxes between beats. When these numbers stay elevated chronically, you receive a diagnosis of hypertension and typically a prescription. But here's the critical question almost nobody asks. Why did your body raise that pressure in the first place? Your cardiovascular system is not stupid. It does not malfunction randomly. Blood pressure regulation involves a remarkably sophisticated network of sensors, hormones, nerve signals, and feedback loops that constantly adjust pressure based on your body's needs. When pressure rises and stays elevated, your body is doing this intentionally. It is responding to a perceived problem somewhere in the system that requires increased force to maintain adequate blood flow. Think about it logically. If your arteries have become stiffer or narrower, your heart must pump harder to push the same volume of blood through. If your tissues are not receiving adequate oxygen, your body raises pressure to increase delivery. If your kidneys are retaining too much fluid because of hormonal signals telling them to do so, pressure increases as a consequence. In every case, elevated blood pressure is an adaptation, not a malfunction. This is why medications often require increasing doses over time. They chemically force pressure down, but the underlying reason your body raised it still exists. So your body keeps trying to compensate. It fights against the medication, attempting to restore the pressure it believes it needs. You end up in a pharmaceutical arms race against your own physiology. Meanwhile, the actual dysfunction driving the pressure elevation continues unchecked. Arteries continue stiffening. Inflammation continues spreading. Organs continue receiving inadequate support. The number on your monitor looks better, but inside, nothing has actually improved. Clinical research has confirmed this pattern repeatedly. Large studies show that people with controlled blood pressure on medication still experience significantly more cardiovascular events than people with naturally normal blood pressure. The medications reduce risk somewhat, but they do not eliminate it because they do not eliminate the cause. So what is actually causing blood pressure to rise in most people? After reviewing the research extensively, 3 hidden forces emerge as the primary drivers. These forces interact with each other, amplify each other, and create a self-reinforcing cycle that keeps pressure elevated regardless of medication. The first force involves your nervous system. The second involves silent inflammation inside your blood vessels. The third involves a critical mineral imbalance that modern life has created. Understanding these three forces changes everything about how you approach blood pressure. Let me explain each one. The first hidden force driving your blood pressure upward is a nervous system stuck in overdrive. Your body has two main branches of the autonomic nervous system. These operate automatically, without conscious control, regulating functions like heart rate, digestion, and yes, blood pressure. The sympathetic branch is your accelerator. It activates during stress, increasing heart rate, constricting blood vessels, and raising blood pressure. This is your fight-or-flight response, designed to prepare you for immediate physical action. The parasympathetic branch is your brake. It activates during rest and recovery, slowing heart rate, relaxing blood vessels, and lowering blood pressure. This is your rest and digest response, designed to promote healing and calm. In a healthy person, these two branches balance each other. The accelerator engages when needed, then the brake brings everything back to baseline. But here's what happens in modern life. Chronic psychological stress keeps the sympathetic system partially engaged all day long. Work pressure, relationship tension, constant digital stimulation. Your brain perceives ongoing threat, so it keeps your accelerator pressed down continuously. Your blood vessels remain constricted. Your heart rate stays elevated. Your blood pressure stays high. But psychological stress is not the only trigger. Blood sugar instability activates the same stress response. Every time your blood glucose drops rapidly after a spike, your body interprets this as a metabolic emergency. Your adrenal glands release stress hormones. Your sympathetic nervous system fires. Your blood vessels constrict. For someone eating refined carbohydrates throughout the day, this glucose roller coaster happens repeatedly. Their stress response never fully deactivates. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that rapid glucose fluctuations increase sympathetic nervous system activity, independent of average blood sugar levels. The instability itself is the trigger. Sleep disruption is another powerful activator. Studies show that even one night of poor sleep measurably increases sympathetic activity and raises blood pressure the following day. Chronic sleep problems create chronic nervous system overdrive. Here's what most people do not realize. Once your nervous system becomes stuck in this pattern, it forgets how to activate the brake properly. The parasympathetic response weakens from disuse. Your baseline shifts toward constant low-grade stress activation. Researchers call this autonomic dysfunction. Your nervous system has lost its flexibility, its ability to toggle smoothly between activation and recovery. Blood pressure medications do not fix this. Beta blockers reduce heart rate by blocking certain stress hormone receptors, but they do not restore parasympathetic function. They do not retrain your nervous system to activate the brake. They chemically override the accelerator while leaving the underlying imbalance untouched. The moment you stop the medication, or the moment your stress increases beyond what the medication can suppress, pressure rises again. Clinical evidence published in hypertension research confirmed that people with essential hypertension consistently show increased sympathetic nervous system activity and decreased parasympathetic tone compared to people with normal blood pressure. The nervous system imbalance is measurable and documented. This explains why blood pressure often spikes during stressful periods, even in people taking medication. The underlying nervous system dysfunction remains. The medication is just partially masking it. But here is the encouraging part. Unlike artery damage, which takes time to reverse, nervous system function can improve relatively quickly with the right interventions. The parasympathetic brake can be strengthened. The sympathetic overdrive can be calmed. And when this happens, blood pressure often drops substantially without any medication change. I will show you exactly how to do this in the solution section. But first, you need to understand the second hidden force, because these forces work together. And addressing only one while ignoring the others produces incomplete results. The second hidden force is silent inflammation inside your blood vessels. This is not the obvious inflammation you see when you cut your finger and it becomes red and swollen, that acute inflammation is beneficial. It brings healing resources to injured tissue. The inflammation driving blood pressure problems is different. It is chronic, low-grade, systemic, and largely invisible. You cannot feel it. Standard blood tests often miss it, but it is steadily damaging the structures that control your blood pressure. The critical structure is called the endothelium. This is a single layer of cells lining the interior of every blood vessel in your body. It is remarkably thin, almost impossibly delicate, but it performs functions essential to cardiovascular health. When functioning properly, your endothelium constantly produces signaling molecules that tell your blood vessel walls to relax. This keeps vessels flexible and dilated, allowing blood to flow easily with minimal resistance. The most important of these signals is nitric oxide, a gas molecule that diffuses into the smooth muscle layer of your vessel walls and causes them to relax. Healthy endothelium produces nitric oxide continuously, maintaining vessels in a relaxed state. But when inflammatory molecules circulate in your bloodstream, they damage endothelial cells directly. The cells become dysfunctional. They produce less nitric oxide and more constriction signals. Your vessels lose their ability to relax properly. This is called endothelial dysfunction, and research published in the journal Circulation established that it is present in virtually every form of cardiovascular disease, often appearing years or decades before clinical symptoms develop. Your blood vessels are not just narrowed, they have lost the ability to dilate when they should. They are stuck in a partially constricted state because the cells that should be telling them to relax are damaged and dysfunctional. So, what causes this chronic inflammation that damages your endothelium? The first major driver is dietary fat imbalance. Your body uses two main families of fatty acids to produce signaling molecules, omega-6 and omega-3. Omega-6 fatty acids generally produce pro-inflammatory signals. Omega-3 fatty acids generally produce anti-inflammatory signals. Humans evolved eating these fats in roughly equal amounts. Traditional diets provided a ratio close to 1:1. Modern processed food diets have completely inverted this ratio. Studies show most people now consume 15 to 25 times more omega-6 than omega-3. This happens because processed foods are manufactured using cheap vegetable oils, soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, all extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids. This dramatic imbalance floods your body with pro-inflammatory signals. Research published in Biomedicine and Pharmacotherapy demonstrated that this distorted ratio promotes systemic inflammation with particularly damaging effects on vascular tissue. The second driver is visceral fat, the fat stored around your internal organs rather than under your skin. Unlike subcutaneous fat, which is relatively inactive metabolically, visceral fat behaves like an endocrine organ. It actively secretes inflammatory molecules called adipokines directly into your bloodstream, continuously. A study in the journal Obesity Reviews confirmed that visceral adipose tissue produces inflammatory signals that damage blood vessels systemically. Someone can appear relatively lean but carry significant visceral fat, particularly if they are sedentary and consume processed foods regularly. This creates hidden inflammation, driving blood pressure upward without obvious external signs. The third driver is gut dysfunction, specifically a condition called increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut. Your intestinal lining is supposed to be selectively permeable, allowing nutrients through while blocking bacteria and toxins. When this barrier becomes compromised, bacterial fragments leak into your bloodstream, triggering immune responses and chronic inflammation throughout your body, including your blood vessels. Research published in Nature Reviews Cardiology established that gut bacteria directly influence blood pressure through multiple pathways, including production of inflammatory molecules that enter circulation when intestinal barrier function fails. Here is the critical point. Blood pressure medications do not reduce vascular inflammation. They force vessels to dilate chemically or reduce fluid volume, but the inflammatory damage continues unchecked. The endothelium remains dysfunctional. The underlying process advances silently. This is why someone can have controlled blood pressure on medication, yet still experience a heart attack or stroke. The number looked good, but inside the vessels, inflammation was steadily causing damage that the medication never addressed. If this is making you think differently about blood pressure, you're starting to understand why the conventional approach fails so many people. Take a moment to like this video if you are finding this information valuable, and leave a comment telling me whether you have experienced blood pressure issues despite following standard advice. Your engagement helps this information reach more people who need it. Now, the third hidden force is one that almost nobody talks about, yet it may be the most practically correctable of all three. The third hidden force, driving your blood pressure upward, is a mineral crisis that modern life has created inside your body. You have probably been told to reduce sodium intake. This is the standard advice given to nearly everyone with elevated blood pressure. Cut the salt, lower the pressure. But here's what that advice misses entirely. Blood pressure regulation does not depend on sodium alone. It depends on the balance between four critical minerals: sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. These minerals work in dynamic equilibrium, each one influencing the others. Research published in the American Journal of Physiology demonstrated that the ratio of sodium to potassium in your diet predicts blood pressure far more accurately than sodium intake by itself. Traditional human diets contained roughly equal amounts of sodium and potassium, sometimes even more potassium than sodium. Our bodies evolved expecting this balance. Modern processed food diets have completely inverted this ratio. Most people now consume 5 to 10 times more sodium than potassium. This inversion is catastrophic for blood pressure regulation. Potassium directly relaxes blood vessel walls. It counterbalances sodium's fluid retention effects. It reduces sympathetic nervous system activity. Without adequate potassium, sodium's pressure-raising effects become dramatically amplified. Meta-analysis, published in the Journal of the American Heart Association, found that increasing potassium intake lowered systolic blood pressure by an average of 4.5 points, with even larger effects in people with existing hypertension. For many people, increasing potassium works better than restricting sodium, but the mineral that may matter most is one that receives almost no attention: magnesium. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, including the relaxation of smooth muscle cells in your blood vessel walls. Without adequate magnesium, your blood vessels literally cannot relax properly. They remain in a state of chronic partial constriction, regardless of what medications you take. Research published in the journal Hypertension demonstrated that magnesium supplementation produces significant blood pressure reduction, particularly in people with deficiency. The problem is that magnesium deficiency has reached epidemic proportions. Studies suggest that up to 75% of adults do not meet the recommended daily intake. Modern agricultural practices have depleted magnesium from soil. Food processing strips magnesium from grains and other foods. Common medications actively deplete magnesium from your body. Proton pump inhibitors, used for acid reflux, deplete magnesium. Thiazide diuretics, one of the most commonly prescribed blood pressure medications, deplete magnesium. The medication prescribed to lower your blood pressure may actually be worsening the mineral imbalance that contributes to your hypertension. Then there is calcium, which presents a paradox. Many people have too much calcium depositing in their arteries while having too little calcium in their bones. This misplacement happens when certain vitamins and minerals that direct calcium to the right locations are deficient. Calcium deposits in arterial walls make vessels stiff and rigid. They lose their elasticity and ability to expand and contract with each heartbeat. This arterial stiffness directly raises blood pressure, particularly the systolic number. The mineral crisis is not about any single mineral being too high or too low. It is about the relationships between minerals being completely disrupted by modern diets and lifestyles. And here's what makes this force so important to understand. Unlike nervous system retraining, which requires consistent practice, and unlike inflammation reduction, which requires sustained dietary changes, mineral correction can begin producing effects relatively quickly once you know what to do. Now, let me show you exactly how to address all three of these hidden forces naturally. The first protocol targets your nervous system, calming the sympathetic overdrive and restoring parasympathetic function. The most powerful tool available is controlled, slow breathing. This is not meditation. This is not relaxation advice. This is a specific physiological intervention that directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve. Research published in the journal Hypertension demonstrated that breathing at a rate of 6 breaths per minute activates parasympathetic pathways and reduces blood pressure by 5 to 10 points systolic after 4 weeks of consistent practice. Here is the specific technique. Inhale slowly through your nose for 5 seconds. Exhale slowly through your nose for 5 seconds. This creates a rhythm of 6 breaths per minute. Continue for 10 to 15 minutes. The key is the slow exhalation. Extended exhalation activates vagal tone, which directly signals your blood vessels to relax and your heart rate to slow. You are manually engaging the brake that has become weakened. Do this practice daily, ideally in the morning before the day's stressors begin. Many people notice improvement in their blood pressure readings within the first 2 weeks. Clinical trials using device-guided versions of this breathing practice showed average reductions of 10 to 15 points systolic after 8 weeks. The second intervention is blood sugar stabilization. Remember that glucose crashes trigger sympathetic activation. By preventing the spikes that cause the crashes, you reduce the metabolic stress that keeps your nervous system on alert. The practical approach is straightforward. Eat protein and fat before carbohydrates at each meal. This dramatically slows glucose absorption and prevents rapid spikes. Reduce refined carbohydrates and added sugars. Include fiber with every meal to further slow glucose entry into your bloodstream. Research published in Cell Metabolism showed that simply changing the order in which you eat foods, vegetables first, then protein, then carbohydrates, reduced glucose spikes by up to 75% compared to eating the same foods in reverse order. The third intervention is sleep optimization. Your nervous system cannot recover from sympathetic overdrive without adequate quality sleep. The target is 7 to 8 hours with consistent timing. Maintain the same bedtime and wake time within 30 minutes daily, including weekends. Eliminate blue light exposure from screens 2 hours before bed. Keep your bedroom cool, between 65 and 68 degrees. Avoid caffeine after noon, as it has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours and interferes with deep sleep, even when you feel you are sleeping fine. These 3 interventions, slow breathing, blood sugar stability, and sleep optimization, work together to retrain your autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic overdrive calms, the parasympathetic brake strengthens. Blood pressure responds accordingly. The second protocol targets vascular inflammation, reducing the damage to your endothelium and restoring its ability to produce relaxation signals. The first priority is correcting your omega fatty acid ratio. This requires 2 simultaneous changes. Dramatically reduce omega-6 intake by eliminating processed seed oils from your diet. Soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil, and sunflower oil are the primary sources. These oils are ubiquitous in processed foods, restaurant cooking, salad dressings, and packaged snacks. Read labels carefully. Cook at home using olive oil, avocado oil, butter, or coconut oil. Instead, simultaneously increase omega-3 intake through fatty fish or supplementation. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, and anchovies provide the highest amounts. Research published in the American Journal of Hypertension found that omega-3 supplementation reduces blood pressure by an average of 4.5 points systolic. The effective dose from clinical trials is 2 to 4 grams of combined EPA and DHA daily. The second priority is reducing visceral fat, the metabolically active fat that secretes inflammatory molecules continuously. High-intensity interval training has been shown to reduce visceral fat more effectively than steady-state cardio of equal duration. A study published in the Journal of Obesity found that interval training reduced visceral fat by 17% after 12 weeks, compared to 8% with moderate continuous exercise. A simple protocol works well. 20 to 30 seconds of maximum effort, any activity that significantly elevates your heart rate, followed by 60 to 90 seconds of recovery. Repeat 8 to 10 times. Perform 3 times weekly. This takes less than 20 minutes per session and produces substantial visceral fat reduction over time. The third priority is improving gut barrier integrity to stop inflammatory molecules from leaking into circulation. Eliminate or reduce foods that damage intestinal lining, refined sugars, excessive alcohol, and artificial additives. Increase foods that strengthen barrier function. Fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and plain yogurt provide beneficial bacteria. Prebiotic fiber from vegetables feeds these beneficial bacteria. Bone broth provides amino acids that help rebuild intestinal lining. Research published in the journal Gut demonstrated that prebiotic supplementation reduced systemic inflammation markers by 25% after 8 weeks. If you are finding this protocol helpful, share this video with someone you know who struggles with blood pressure. This information could genuinely change their health trajectory. And subscribe to Wellness Secrets if you want more evidence-based health content that goes beyond surface-level advice. The third protocol targets mineral balance, restoring the ratios your cardiovascular system requires to function properly. The first priority is dramatically increasing potassium intake. The recommended daily amount is 4,700 milligrams. Most adults consume less than 2,500 milligrams. Closing this gap directly supports blood pressure regulation. The richest food sources include avocados at approximately 1,000 milligrams each, white beans at 1,000 milligrams per cup cooked, sweet potatoes at 950 milligrams each, spinach at 840 milligrams per cup cooked, and bananas at 420 milligrams each. The goal is consuming at least 4,000 milligrams daily from food sources. This sounds like a lot, but 2 cups of cooked leafy greens, 1 avocado, and 1 sweet potato gets you most of the way there. The second priority is restoring magnesium levels beyond dietary sources like dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and dark chocolate. Supplementation is often necessary given how widespread deficiency has become. The most absorbable forms are magnesium glycinate and magnesium citrate. These forms are well tolerated and efficiently absorbed. Clinical trials showing blood pressure benefit use doses of 300 to 500 milligrams daily. Start at the lower end and increase gradually. Magnesium glycinate is particularly well suited for evening use because it promotes relaxation and supports sleep quality, which further supports nervous system recovery. The third priority is improving your sodium to potassium ratio without obsessive salt restriction. For most people, the goal is not extreme sodium reduction, but rather rebalancing. If you dramatically increase potassium while moderately reducing sodium from processed foods, the ratio shifts favorably. The simple approach: cook more meals at home using whole ingredients and reduce packaged and restaurant food consumption. This naturally reduces sodium intake by 50 to 70% because processed foods contain approximately 75% of the sodium in typical modern diets. When you do add salt, use unrefined sea salt or mineral salt, which provides trace minerals along with sodium rather than isolated refined sodium chloride. Here's how to put all 3 protocols together into a practical daily action plan. Morning protocol: start your day with 10 to 15 minutes of slow breathing practice at 6 breaths per minute. This activates parasympathetic tone before daily stressors begin. Have a breakfast that includes protein and healthy fat before any carbohydrates. Consider taking your magnesium supplement in a divided dose, half in the morning. Throughout the day, maintain blood sugar stability by including protein with every meal and snack. Avoid refined carbohydrates and added sugars. Drink adequate water. Include at least 2 high-potassium foods, leafy greens, avocado, sweet potato, or beans, afternoon or evening. Perform your high-intensity interval training 3 times weekly, or daily walking for 30 minutes on other days. Movement supports both nervous system regulation and visceral fat reduction. Evening protocol: avoid screens for 2 hours before bed, or use blue light blocking glasses. Take the second half of your magnesium supplement. Maintain consistent sleep timing. Aim for 7 to 8 hours. Weekly additions: consume fatty fish at least twice weekly for omega-3 intake, or supplement daily. Include fermented foods several times weekly for gut health. Prepare meals at home using whole ingredients as often as possible. What to expect? Nervous system improvements can begin within 2 weeks. Mineral balance improvements often show effects within 4 to 6 weeks. Inflammation reduction and visceral fat loss take longer, typically 8 to 12 weeks for meaningful change. Blood pressure improvements follow these timelines. Some people see changes quickly. Others require consistent effort over several months. The body needs time to repair and recalibrate systems that have been dysfunctional for years. I need to be absolutely clear about something important. Do not stop your blood pressure medication based on this video. That would be medically dangerous and potentially life-threatening. Medications serve a necessary purpose. They protect you from immediate complications while you address the underlying forces creating your hypertension. Think of medication as a safety bridge, keeping you protected while you build the permanent road to resolution. As you implement these protocols consistently, monitor your blood pressure at home. Document your readings over weeks and months. When you see consistent improvement, bring this data to your physician. Have a collaborative conversation about potentially reducing medication under medical supervision. This is the responsible approach. Never reduce or stop medication without your doctor's guidance and monitoring. Some people are able to reduce and eventually eliminate medication entirely as the underlying dysfunctions resolve. Others may reduce dosage significantly. The outcome depends on your individual situation, how long you have had hypertension, what damage exists, and how consistently you apply these protocols. But here is the essential difference to understand. Medication suppresses the symptom, elevated pressure readings. These protocols resolve the causes, nervous system overdrive, vascular inflammation, and mineral imbalance. When causes are resolved, symptoms become unnecessary. Your body stops raising pressure because it no longer needs to compensate. This is genuine healing, not chemical management. The real reason your blood pressure is high is not a medication deficiency. It is a systems imbalance created by modern life, chronic stress, processed foods, disrupted sleep, inverted mineral ratios, and inflammatory diets. You now understand these forces. You now have the tools to correct them. The choice is yours. Continue managing a number with pills indefinitely, while underlying dysfunction progresses silently. Or address the actual causes and give your body the conditions it needs to normalize blood pressure naturally. Your cardiovascular system is remarkable. It possesses extraordinary capacity to heal and regulate itself properly when given the right conditions. These protocols provide those conditions. Start today. Choose one protocol and begin implementing it this week. Add the others progressively. Monitor your progress. Work with your doctor as improvements occur. If you want more evidence-based health information that explains not just what to do, but why it works, subscribe to Wellness Secrets. I am committed to bringing you the deeper understanding that empowers real health improvement, not just symptom management. Take care of your cardiovascular system. It is the only one you will ever have, and it wants to heal if you give it the chance. The real solution to high blood pressure is not a lifelong prescription. It is understanding why your body raised the pressure and systematically removing those reasons. Now you know. What you do next is up to you.